Welcome to the Week in Review at the Nebraska Department of Education. I'm David Jesperson, Public Information Officer for NDE. Thank you so much for watching this brief update. The goal over the next few minutes is to fill you in on some of the news, notes, and events that happened over the past 2 weeks involving NDE. And we'll start with an extremely busy board meeting. There were a lot of big things discussed, and a large crowd attended to have their opinions heard. The topic that dominated the most time with the public was the proposed science standards. State law requires updates to standards every 7 years. The revised standards, Nebraska's College and Career Ready Standards for Science, create the framework for science education in Nebraska. Input from science educators in Nebraska and public online surveys were used to craft the final draft. Dozens of people provided feedback at the board meeting on Friday. The board is set to vote on the standards in September. The board did vote to authorize the commissioner to set cut scores for the new English Language Arts assessment. The new scores were needed after the development of new assessments aligned to the Nebraska College and Career Ready English Language Arts standards. The board will look at score setting for the ACT in September. Revision grants were awarded to Nebraska schools across the state to help develop Nebraska's talent pipelines for economic growth and workforce development and strengthen high school career and technical education programs. Schools will receive either initial grants to complete a strategic planning process or action grants to help implement the goals set during the initial revision process. You can find a lot more information on revision and the grants on NDE's revision webpage. The Nebraska State Board of Education voted to approve moving Druid Hill Elementary in Omaha off of the list of the state's 3 priority schools. Druid Hill becomes the first school to successfully transition since the creation of the current performance rating system developed in 2014. Druid Hill has made great strides with improvements in attendance, test scores, and the overall culture of the school. NDE will continue to support Druid Hill as they move forward with their sustainability plan. There's also been big improvement at the remaining 2 priority schools, Santee Middle School in Niobrara and Loup County Elementary in Taylor. Those schools will continue to get support from NDE by remaining on the priority status for the 2017-2018 school year. Expanded learning opportunities will soon be available to 10 more sites in Nebraska. 2-year expanded learning opportunity grants funded by proceeds from the Nebraska Lottery were approved by the board. Board members previously approved awards for programming at 33 sites in May, but because funding was still available, another competition was conducted and programming at 10 additional sites were approved. And more than $2 million will be awarded to the Nebraska schools to deliver healthy food to kids through the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable program. Out of 170 school food authorities that applied, 115 were funded. And before we wrap up this week, we want to remind you of some great resources available online for your use. This week we sent out updated Nebraska Public School District and ESU maps. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, you should check them out on NDE's homepage. Also on that homepage is the Commissioner's Keynote handout from Administrators' Days. Feel free to use these great resources as you do school visits and workshops this fall. Thank you for tuning in to This Week in Review. We'll see you next week with the latest news from NDE.